G'day folks. Today I thought I'd do a reveal of my 2023 Supercoach team. So to go through my defense, what you'll notice immediately is that I've gone very cheap. So I don't care for any of the premiums this year. I think they're all very expensive, and I think there's substantial value in the sub 350Ks. So that's sort of how I'm looking at it here. So Yo, if he's playing through the midfield and healthy, he's going to score a lot more than his average. Same story with Hunter Clark. If he's playing through the midfield and at this price point, he's going to make you a lot of money. Jack Bowes, again, very cheap. Don't mind where he plays. If he's best 22, he's in my team. Nick Coffield, of course, injuries are the concern. But again, if he's playing round one and looks like he's going to hold his spot, I'm very keen. Very much underpriced. Horne-Francis, look, he's been disappointing with Essendon over the years, not being able to establish himself as a regular. But I think with a new club in Sydney, I think there's that genuine opportunity to establish himself as a regular defender and become a meaningful piece as both an interceptor but also a rebounder with what he can generate by foot. So watch out for that. If he doesn't become best 22, well, he's easily replaced. It's pretty easy to swing a Wagner into defense, and there's lots of other defense rookies as well. So if you look at my previous video where I cover some of the money-making options in defense, it's pretty easy to find a replacement for the likes of a Francis. Connor McKenna, hopefully he's best 22 if he is, and he's across halfback, well, he's going to generate a heap of drive, both with his run and also by foot. So absolute weapon, and in my opinion, at least when he was playing for Essendon, he was the best rebounder in the comp with the combination of both the speed and the precision skills. He had one of the highest kick ratings in the comp, so having that with the speed was just really something to watch, it's fair to say. You've got Weddle in defence, I think is a shot for an early debut, possibly round one. Good option for your bench if that's the case. And you've got Darcy Wilmot as well, where finishing off the year so strongly last year, showing pre-season signs, he's a genuine best 22 spot chance as well. And it'll be interesting to see if both he and McKenna can play both in round one as part of that Brisbane defence. Fingers crossed they can, but if not, well, again, there's lots of cheap alternatives in defence. So I'm not really sweating on any absences from this group. It'll be very easy to replace any of them. Midfield, so I'm seeing quite a lot of mid-price value through the midfield, but there's also a lot of premiums that are underpriced as well. So they're the real directions that I wanted to take. So with the likes of Bontempelli and McRae, well, with Dunkley gone through that Western Bulldogs midfield, well, what's that going to mean? Well, it's going to mean greater midfield minutes and greater ball-winning responsibilities for the likes of Bont and McRae. So they could well be the top two scorers in Supercoach this year. So, and if not, well, I think they can both increase their average from last year, if nothing else. So there too, I'm very confident in starting, and they've both got pretty good durability as well. So, yeah, they're the reasons that they come into my team as probably the captain options. But then you've got Jack Steele as well, where again, a little bit underpriced based on his capabilities from recent years. So very comfortable having him in there as well for some representation from a different club. Tom Green, I think, is going to be a genuine top 8 scoring midfielder this year. So, yeah, I'm expecting him to be a keeper. He, with I guess, the clear out of the GWS midfielders, whether it's a Taranto leaving, whether it's a Hopper leaving, well, what that means is greater midfield minutes for a Tom Green. And he's got the scope to be the premier first possession winning midfielder in the comp. So I think in the volume charts, he can lead anyone. And just with that inside distribution by hand in particular, well, he's really going to be living off of that sort of stuff. So he'll put up something like Patrick Cripps numbers and play a pretty similar style of game with that same sort of output. Or a Josh Kennedy, Sydney's Josh Kennedy from years ago when he was in his prime. They're the sort of things I'm expecting of Tom Green to be achieving. So given that, I'm very comfortable with him in my midfield. And honestly, after Ashcroft, he was actually my next picked player. I just had that level of conviction with putting Tom Green in at this price point. So definitely give him consideration, given, again, that greater opportunity for midfield minutes. and responsibility for that matter. Jacob Hopper, that's what Richmond need through their midfield. Their midfield has been absolutely horrendous over recent years. They've now got a genuine ball winner in Hopper, so that's fantastic, and Taranto, who I'll touch upon a bit later. But at this price point for Hopper, you're getting a bargain. He's worth a lot more than this. He can average 90 for you this year. Maybe more. It's possible he could average more, but he's going to make you money, and you can probably just move him direct into a premium, whether it's in the midfield or another position. So that's my plan for him. James Worpel, really, again, as I mentioned in my previous video, with a Worpel, well, if you've got a Tom Mitchell moving on, if you've got a O'Meara moving on, well, Worpel is one of the really likely players to shoulder a much larger role through the midfield. And given he's scored well in the past with that greater midfield opportunity, well, I think he's going to make a lot of money as with someone like a Hopper. So I'd be expecting pretty similar output, and there's no reason he can't score 90. So if that's enough for you, consider him for your team, because I think that's roughly what he'll achieve this year. Sam Flanders, look, I've had a few others I considered here as well. I considered Jai Cully quite strongly, in which case that would mean a Ratagolier I could have through the ruck. That would be a more preferred way to do that. But yeah, look, with the Flanders, I think he's absolutely going to do terrific things this year. So the key will be that he's playing regularly as a regular midfielder. If he's playing through the midfield, well, if you caught any of what he did through the VFL Finals series last year, well, he's going to be a dominant midfielder for Gold Coast, even based on that. So he'll put up big numbers. He had 2 games of 40-plus disposals. He was racking up tackles, and he can hit the scoreboard as well. You can put him forward a little bit too. So it gives you lots of options, and I think he'll be one of the real big improvers in the upcoming year. So yeah, circle his name. Probably put him in your forward line depending on who else you want in your forwards, but as per my structure, I was perfectly fine with just including him as a midfielder, just because there weren't really enough spots in the forward line to really include everyone I'd like. But yeah, Will Ashcroft, he has to be starting on your field. If you've got him on your bench, you're wasting points. It's that simple. He can average 90 this year. So definitely have him in your team, and definitely have him starting on your field. I cannot be more clear on that. He will be one of Brisbane's best midfielders, and it's quite likely he will have one of the best first seasons ever. So take that to the bank, assuming, of course, health permitting, and that he plays regular midfield minutes, because they're the keys to his play. He's a pure mid, and he'll win first possession, and he'll just charge out of the midfield with bursts of speed. So Brisbane fans will have an absolute treat watching Will Ashcroft this year and into the future, for that matter. Will Phillips, look, you could start him on your field if you want to. I think he's got that scope to score to that level. But for the purposes of this team, I've got him on my bench. And I think he'll be a regular best 22 piece through the midfield. And yeah, it's really just he's needed a full preseason behind him, and really that, I guess, healthy body to be able to play his best footy. So if those conditions are the case, that he's playing as a regular mid and he's had a healthy preseason and looks good coming into the year, I think he can become that regular midfielder and score pretty well for North Melbourne. Mackenzie, good bench option. I think he'll play pretty regularly given how terrible Hawthorn's midfield is at the moment. Given I think they had the worst midfield in the comp last year, and then obviously they've lost Mitchell and O'Meara. It's pretty bleak stuff there. Aside from, of course, Newcomb, who admittedly is a star, for those Hawthorn fans that'll get angry at me bagging on Hawthorn's midfield. And then you've got Wagner, who, look, if he's healthy and playing round 1, I want him in my team. So, and if he's not healthy round 1, we'll look to bring him in once he starts playing for Fremantle. It looks pretty likely that he'll be playing at least regular, if not semi-regular games for Fremantle, and most likely across halfback, so he'll score well. He's an experienced footballer and had a really good year in the VFL, for those who aren't aware of what he was doing in the VFL. English and Marshall, they're probably my ruck combination for this year. If one of them gets injured, I don't know who I'd go with, maybe a Witts, I'd have to see. Max Gawn would be nice to include, but of course if you've got a Brodie Grundy and they're sharing the ruck minutes, look, Gawn's going to be relegated to playing mostly forward. And if, of course, Grundy is sharing the ruck minutes with Gawn, who will no doubt play some ruck minutes, well, he's not going to score enough either. So I think probably English and Marshall are the right combination. Marshall should score more with Ryder gone, and English if he's healthy for the whole year, and he's got another preseason into him, another year in the gym. Assuming he's in good shape and healthy, he could be possibly, along with Marshall, probably that 1 and 2 scoring ruck this year, possibly. Madden, he's not going to play this year. He's not ready to play. Really needs to drop the kilos. But for the purposes of this team, just because of the price point, the dual position component, he's just there as a placeholder for now. Again, a Radigolia I'd much prefer here as someone who's actually likely to play and gives me a bit of injury insurance as well if an English or Marshall get hurt, which there's a good chance of. So I'll need to see if I can find a way to sort of fit him in here. But I'm a few dollars short, so I will no doubt do some toying from this point with my current squad. Through the forwards, Dunkley I think is underpriced. Cornelio I think is a little bit underpriced too. Cornelio, of course, with the, I guess, shakeout of the GWS midfield, well, if you've got no Hopper, no Taranto in there, well, who's to say Cornelio can't average more? So he needs to be in there. Dunkley will be the top scoring forward, most likely, assuming health. That's the only question there. And then Taranto, I think, is a bit underpriced too and should play a more prominent role in Richmond's midfield, just as I'd say with Hopper. So, so I think there's quite a lot of possible cash generation, and they at least hold sort of their scoring output from last year. But I think all three of them actually have the scope to improve on it, honestly. And Dunkley with sort of a better tap ruckman as well to access. I think that means his scoring probably boosts a little. Cunnington, absolute gun min. We have to see, is he going to be a regular mid? I haven't followed any of that, but sounds like he's healthy and sort of playing pretty well in their practice matches. So, look, if he's playing as a mid, I definitely want Cunnington in my team because he can really score with the best of them and probably will be a top 6 scoring forward. Horne-Francis, as I mentioned in my previous video, very underpriced, and ignore what he did in his first season. If you want to see anything of him to reflect what he's got the scope to do going forward, watch what he was doing before he got drafted in the Sandful, in particular through that final series and how he was really carrying during that time, because he was absolutely dominating. And I think for Port Adelaide, he's going to have a real impact. Could be similar even to what Dacos was doing for Collingwood, but of course different position, different role, different play style. But I think he's going to be a real impact player, and I don't think people realise how good he is going to be for Port Adelaide. I think he's going to be an absolute weapon. He's mostly a mid, but also going forward. So be aware, you could be seeing something like 90s, maybe even more from a Horne-Francis this year. We'll have to see how much he's playing as a mid and how he's looking, but I think this year is likely to be a breakout year, body permitting. Archie Perkins, he's ready to go as a mid, and I think he'll have a breakout year as well if he's playing as a permanent mid. Is another whereas with a Horne-Francis, he could average 90 pretty easily, and I wouldn't blink at that. McLean, underpriced, likely to play, probably not a mid, but he'll make money, so I'm pretty happy to have him in my team. And Joe Richards, I think he plays early, if not round 1, and he can generate drive across half-back and let Dacos go through the mids. So, assuming he's listed round 1 as well, he's going to be part of my team. And I should mention as well, the main dilemma I'm playing with is I'd like to make Madden into Radigolia, and to do so, it would likely mean a Horne-Francis moves to the mids, becomes a Cully, and a Perkins becomes maybe a Zeeble. So they're moves that I'm also considering, and I'm a bit back and forth with that one, but if I was to go through, I guess, what the most likely immediate change will be to my team, that's probably the one I'm considering at the moment. Thanks for watching, folks, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for future updates, and let me know in the comments section below if you've got any questions around any of the players I've picked, what players could potentially average, be it in Supercoach or AFL Fantasy. I'm more than happy to dive into that. And if there's any terrible mistakes or players that I've overlooked who I should have included, feel free to call me out in the comments section below and let me know who I should have in my team and who I should be getting rid of if maybe I've got a player who's injured that I just haven't read an injury report on, or whatever the case may be, or someone you just don't think will have a good year or play the role that I'm thinking that they might play. But yeah, anyway, folks, see you in the next video.